The chains bit into Derek Stone's wrists as two guards shoved him forward into the chamber. His uniform was torn, blood crusted along his temple from the crash. The room stretched vast and circular, walls carved from black stone that seemed to absorb light. At its center sat a single figure on a raised platform. The alien was old, not just aged, but ancient in a way that transcended species. His skin held the texture of weathered leather, deep gray with veins of silver running beneath. 4 arms rested on the armrests of his throne, each scarred beyond counting. His eyes, 3 of them arranged in a triangle on his face, fixed on Derek with an intensity that made the human's breath catch. "Captain Derek Stone," the alien said, his voice like grinding stone. "I am Kavreth, elder of the Tribunal Council. Do you know why you're here?" Derek's jaw tightened. "Because we broke through your blockade. You broke through a barrier that has stood for 2 centuries, Kavreth said. He rose slowly, his towering frame unfolding to nearly 8 feet. 17 ships entered your solar system to enforce the quarantine. You destroyed 16. The last one fled. He descended the steps, each footfall echoing. Do you understand what you've done?" "We defended ourselves," Derek said. "You did more than that." Kavreth stopped 3 feet away, studying Derek like a specimen. "In 1 year, your species went from primitive nuclear rockets to quantum drives. You weaponized technologies that took other races millennia to develop. You turned merchant vessels into warships. You taught yourselves to kill with an efficiency that terrifies the galaxy." Derek met his gaze. "Then maybe you shouldn't have caged us." Something flickered in Kavreth's eyes. Not anger, but something closer to sadness. "Before they execute you at dawn, I'm going to tell you something, Captain Stone. I'm going to tell you who humans really are. Not what you think you are. Not the stories you tell yourselves. The truth. Why? Because in all my years across all the wars I've fought, I've never met a species that didn't deserve to know the truth before they died." Kavreth gestured, and the guards retreated, sealing the door. "Sit." Derek remained standing. Kavreth's expression didn't change. He moved to a panel on the wall, and suddenly the air shimmered. Holographic images appeared, floating between them. Earth spinning in the darkness. Then other worlds, dozens of them, each teeming with life. "The galaxy is old, Captain. Older than your species can fathom. I have lived for 943 of your years. In that time, I have studied 270 sentient species. Do you know what I learned?" Derek said nothing. "Every species in this galaxy evolved through cooperation. The Vorin, my people, developed sentience through hive symbiosis. The Telkari through mutual dependence on shared resources. The Kryn through collective consciousness. Even the predators among us evolved with balance, with restraint coded into our biology." Kavreth turned to face Derek. Every species except one. The hologram shifted. Images of Earth's history played out faster and faster. Humans hunting in packs, tribes warring over territory, empires rising and falling in blood. "You," Kavreth said softly, "humans are the only species we've ever found that evolved through relentless, unending predation, not just of other species, but of yourselves. Your entire evolutionary path is written in violence. Your ancestors didn't just hunt, they competed with each other for dominance. Your brains are wired for aggression, for conquest, for the thrill of overcoming obstacles." Derek's fists clenched. "We've changed. We've built civilizations, created art, developed philosophy, on foundations of war." Kavreth interrupted. The hologram showed human conflicts, ancient battles, medieval sieges, world wars, the colonial expansions. Every advancement in your history came through or because of conflict. Your greatest technological leaps were driven by the need to kill each other more efficiently. Your renaissance followed plagues and wars. Your space age began with weapons designed to destroy cities. "That's not all we are," Derek said, voice tight. "No," Kavreth agreed. "But it is what you were built for." He moved closer, his 3 eyes studying Derek's face. "Do you know what happens when other species discover violence doesn't serve them? They stop. They find other paths. But humans? You never stop. You're incapable of it. Derek shook his head. You're wrong. We left Earth because we wanted to explore, to meet other species, to learn. You left Earth because you had run out of frontiers to conquer. Kavreth's voice carried no malice, only a terrible certainty. Because your nature demands expansion, demands challenge, demands something to overcome. It's in your DNA, Captain. The need to push beyond every boundary, to break every rule, to test every limit. The hologram changed again. Now it showed space, vast and dark, and threading through it, invisible lines forming a sphere around Earth's solar system. This is why we fear you, Kavreth said. Not because you're violent. The galaxy has known violent species. We fear you because you refuse to accept limitations. When the Kryn reached their technological plateau, they celebrated. They had achieved sufficiency. When the Telkari mapped their region of space, they were content. But humans? He gestured to the sphere. We've watched you for 3,000 years, Captain. We've seen your civilizations rise and fall, seen you recover from catastrophes that would have ended other species, and we've seen that you never, ever stop reaching. Derek stared at the hologram, seeing the barrier that had surrounded his home world. You imprisoned us. We contained you, Kavreth corrected, for the safety of the galaxy. Every ship that tried to leave your solar system was destroyed. For 200 years, we maintained that barrier. We told ourselves it was necessary, that humanity needed more time to evolve, to mature, to become something other than what you are. But we broke through. Yes, Kavreth's voice dropped. In 200 years, you went from coal-powered steam engines to ships that could pierce our sentinel net. You developed technologies we thought impossible. You adapted. You learned, you innovated with a speed that defies every model we have. And when you finally broke through, you didn't run, you didn't hide. You fought like cornered predators, and you won. Derek felt cold spreading through his chest. How many species know about this? About the quarantine? All of them. Kavreth returned to his throne but didn't sit. The quarantine wasn't a secret, Captain. It was a promise. Every species in the galactic community agreed to it. For 2 centuries we've had peace, knowing that humanity was contained. But now, he spread his forearms. Now you're free, and the galaxy is terrified. The hologram dissolved. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by the sound of Derek's breathing. Why are you telling me this? Derek asked. Kavreth was quiet for a long moment. Because you deserve to know the full truth before you die. But there's more, Captain. Something we've kept hidden even from ourselves. Because acknowledging it would mean confronting our greatest shame. He moved to another panel, and new images appeared. Ancient ruins on a dozen worlds. Structures that dwarfed mountains. Weapons that had scarred planets. And in every image, carved into stone or burned into metal, the same symbol. A double helix wrapped around a star. 10,000 years ago, this galaxy was ruled by a single species. Kavreth said, his voice heavy. They called themselves the Architects. They were brilliant, powerful, and utterly ruthless. They conquered every world they found. They enslaved entire species. They reshaped planets to their will. For 3,000 years they were unstoppable. Derek stared at the images, feeling something twist in his gut. The Architects were biologically unique, Kavreth continued. They evolved through competition and predation. They were driven by an insatiable need to expand, to conquer, to overcome every obstacle. They refused to accept any limitation. Sound familiar, Captain? The hologram zoomed in on one of the carvings. Derek's breath stopped. The figure carved into the stone was bipedal, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and proportions that were unmistakably humanoid. No, Derek whispered. Yes. Kavreth's 3 eyes held Derek's gaze. The Architects were your ancestors, Captain Stone. Humanity isn't a new species rising to meet the stars. You're the remnants of the species that once enslaved the galaxy. Derek's mind reeled. That's impossible. Our evolutionary record was observed by us, yes, on Earth. But we never knew where the Architects came from originally. We never found their homeworld. After the Coalition defeated them, after we hunted down every colony and fortress, we thought they were extinct. Kavreth gestured to Earth in the hologram. But some survived, a ship perhaps, or a small colony that crashed on a primitive world. Stranded, cut off from their empire, they devolved, lost their technology, and slowly, over thousands of years, they became you. You're saying humans are the children of tyrants, Kavreth finished. The descendants of the species that nearly destroyed the galaxy. And now you're waking up, Captain, remembering, in your bones, what you once were. That's why you advance so quickly, why you can't stop pushing boundaries, why violence comes so naturally to you. You're not learning to be warriors, Captain Stone. You're remembering. Derek's chains rattled as his hands shook. If this is true, why didn't you destroy Earth? Why quarantine instead of extermination? Because we're not like the architects, Kavreth said quietly. Because we believed in mercy, in the possibility of change. We told ourselves that perhaps given enough time on a primitive world, humanity might evolve into something different, something better. His expression hardened. But you haven't changed, have you? The moment you reached for the stars, you built warships. The moment you met resistance, you fought. You're exactly what the architects were, and you'll do exactly what they did if given the chance. No, Derek said, voice rough. You're wrong. We're not them. We've learned. We've grown. Have you? Kavreth descended the steps again, moving with predatory grace. Let me ask you, Captain Stone, when you broke through our blockade, when you destroyed those ships, did you hesitate? Did you question whether there might be another way? Or did you do what came naturally? Derek's silence was answer enough. The architects fell because they united the galaxy against them, Kavreth said. Every species, every faction, every world came together to stop them. It took 70 years. Billions died. And when it was over, we swore we would never let it happen again. He stopped in front of Derek. That's why you're going to die, Captain. Not as punishment, but as a message, to show humanity that the galaxy remembers, and we will not be conquered again. Derek looked up at the ancient warrior. Then why wait until dawn? Why tell me any of this? Kavreth was silent for a long moment. Because in 943 years I've learned that truth matters, because you fought with honor even if you don't understand what honor truly is, and because I wanted to look into the eyes of an architect's descendant and see if there was anything worth saving. And is there? Kavreth turned away. I don't know yet. The chamber fell silent again. Derek tested his chains, feeling the weight of them, the finality. Outside he knew his crew was dead or captured. The Prometheus was scrap. Earth was light years away, still believing they'd won a victory. They had no idea what they'd truly unleashed. What happens after I'm dead? Derek asked. The council will vote, Kavreth said. Whether to reinforce the quarantine or take more permanent action. You mean genocide. I mean survival. Kavreth looked back at him. You can't understand, Captain, because you've never been enslaved. You've never watched your world burn because you refused to kneel. The architects didn't just conquer. They broke spirits. They destroyed cultures. They made extinction preferable to surrender. Some species never recovered. My own people number less than 1 million now, where once we filled 100 worlds. Derek saw the pain in those 3 eyes, the weight of centuries. I'm sorry for what they did to you. But I'm not them. My crew isn't them. Humanity isn't. How can you know? Kavreth's voice rose. How can any of you know what you'll become when you have the power? The architects didn't start as monsters, Captain. They started as explorers, too. As builders. As dreamers. And then they found they could take what they wanted, and no one could stop them. And they decided that was easier than asking. We're different, Derek insisted. We have to be. We've learned from our own history, our own mistakes. The architects learned too. Kavreth cut him off. They learned how to conquer more efficiently, how it could have break resistance faster, how to turn every obstacle into a weapon. He moved closer, and Derek could see the scars crisscrossing his face, the marks of battles fought long before Earth's civilizations were born. Tell me, Captain Stone, what will you do when you meet a species that refuses to trade with you? That won't share their technology, that sees you as a threat? Derek opened his mouth, then closed it. Exactly, Kavreth said softly. You don't know. None of you do. Because you haven't been tested yet. You haven't faced the choice between accepting defeat and unleashing the violence that's bred into your bones. So you'll kill me to prevent a possibility? I'll kill you to prevent a certainty. Kavreth returned to his throne, settling into it with the weight of ages. The vote will happen at dawn. Until then, you'll remain here. If you have gods, Captain Stone, I suggest you make your peace with them. Derek looked at the alien warrior, seeing not cruelty but exhaustion. A being who had fought too long, seen too much, and now faced the return of his worst nightmare. Can I ask you something? Kavreth inclined his head. If you're so certain we're monsters, why haven't you already voted? Why give me until dawn? For the first time, something like uncertainty crossed Kavreth's face. Because I'm old, Captain. Old enough to remember when I was certain of many things that turned out to be wrong. Old enough to have seen species change, civilizations rise from barbarism, peace come from the most unlikely places. He leaned forward. And because, when I looked into your eyes as you fought, I saw something I didn't expect. Not fear, not rage, but resolve. The kind of resolve that built civilizations, not just destroyed them. Then there's doubt, Derek said. You're not certain. No, Kavreth admitted. I'm not. And that's why I'm giving you a choice, Captain Stone. Derek's pulse quickened. What choice? Kavreth stood, and with a gesture, Derek's chains unlocked and fell away. The human stumbled forward, catching himself, staring at his freed hands. Fight me, Kavreth said simply. Prove to me that humanity has evolved beyond their ancestors. Show me that you're capable of more than violence. Derek looked up, confused. You want me to fight you to prove I'm not violent? I want you to fight for your life and the future of your species, Kavreth corrected. And I want to see what choice you make when you have the power to win. The architects would kill, without hesitation. They would strike first, strike hardest, and never show mercy. If you're truly different, Captain Stone, prove it. Derek rubbed his wrists, mind racing. It was a trap. It had to be. But looking at Kavreth, at the ancient warrior who had lived through nightmares Derek couldn't imagine, he saw genuine curiosity, a need to know if hope was possible. And if I win? Derek asked. Then I'll tell the council what I witnessed, Kavreth said. It won't save you, but it might save your species. It might give them the chance I'm not sure they deserve. Derek took a breath, feeling the weight of billions of lives on his shoulders. Earth, Mars, the colonies, everyone who had ever looked up at the stars and dreamed. And if I lose, then at least you'll die fighting, which is what your kind prefers anyway. Kavreth moved to the center of the chamber, his forearms spreading. He was unarmed, but Derek had no illusions about the danger. This was a being who had survived 900 years of war. Derek stepped forward, his body aching from the crash, his mind still reeling from everything he'd learned. But Kavreth was right about one thing. Humanity did prefer to go down fighting. The first exchange happened almost too fast to follow. Kavreth's lower arms swept for Derek's legs while his upper arms struck high. Derek rolled under the attack, came up inside Kavreth's guard, and drove his elbow toward the alien's midsection. Kavreth twisted, absorbing the blow on his side, and one hand caught Derek's arm, the strength in it like a vice. Derek pivoted, using momentum to break the grip, and created distance. His military training kicked in, analyzing, adapting. Kavreth had 4 arms but was old, possibly slower than he once was. Derek was younger, faster, but outmatched in reach and strength. They circled each other, and Derek saw approval in Kavreth's 3 eyes. Good. You fight smart, not just hard. I fight to win, Derek said. Then show me. The battle intensified. Derek gave everything he had, every technique learned in 20 years of service, every dirty trick picked up in bars and back alleys before that. But Kavreth was a living legend, a warrior who had refined combat to an art form across centuries, Every time Derek thought he found an opening, it closed. Every advantage he pressed turned into a trap. A sweeping kick took Derek's feet out. He hit the ground hard, rolled, came up bleeding from a cut above his eye. Kavreth stood waiting, not even breathing hard. "Is this all the Architect's children have become?" Kavreth asked. "Where is the fury? Where is the ruthlessness that conquered the galaxy?" Derek wiped blood from his face, and then he understood. Kavreth wasn't just testing his fighting ability. He was testing his nature, waiting to see if Derek would break, would embrace the violence that supposedly defined humanity. Instead, Derek stood straight and lowered his hands. "No." Kavreth's eyes narrowed. "You surrender?" "I refuse," Derek said. "I refuse to become what you expect, to prove you right by tearing into you like an animal. You want to see the Architects? You won't find them in me. Then you die a coward." "No," Derek said firmly. "I die the human my species chose to become, not the one we were born from." Kavreth stared at him, forearms still raised, posture ready for combat. Long seconds passed. Then slowly the ancient warrior lowered his hands. "You would accept execution rather than fight for your life?" "I'd accept execution rather than prove your point," Derek said. "You want to see humanity revert to our ancestors? Kill me. But know that every human who comes after me will have heard this story. Will know that we chose a different path, even when it cost us everything." Something changed in Kavreth's expression. The hardness softened, replaced by something Derek couldn't quite read. Respect, maybe. Or sadness. "You truly believe your species has changed," Kavreth said quietly. "I know we're trying," Derek replied. "Isn't that what matters? Not where we came from, but where we're choosing to go." Kavreth moved to his throne and sat heavily. For a long moment he was silent, 3 eyes distant, seeing something beyond the chamber walls. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weariness that made Derek's chest ache. "I lied to you, Captain Stone." Derek tensed. "About what?" "About everything," Kavreth said. "The genetic connection. All of it." Derek's world tilted. "What?" "There were architects, yes, and they did enslave the galaxy. But they weren't human. They weren't even bipedal." Kavreth met Derek's gaze. "I created that story to test you, to see how you would react when confronted with the worst possible version of your own nature, to see if you would embrace it or reject it." Rage flared in Derek's chest. "You manipulated." "I gave you a choice," Kavreth interrupted. "And you chose mercy over violence, understanding over rage, even when you thought your entire species was damned. You refused to become the monster I described." He rose from his throne. "That's why you're going to live, Captain Stone. And that's what I'm going to tell the Council." Derek's hands shook. "I don't understand." "The quarantine was real," Kavreth explained, "as is the fear. Humanity's rapid advancement terrifies the galaxy. You are aggressive, you are relentless, and you do push boundaries in ways that unsettle us. But I needed to know if that aggression could be tempered with wisdom, if that relentlessness could be guided by principles, if humanity could choose restraint even when violence was easier. So this was all a test?" "Everything is a test, Captain," Kavreth said. "Life, war, peace. We are all tested every moment by the choices we make." He approached Derek, and for the first time extended one hand in what might have been a gesture of respect. "You passed, Captain Stone. You showed me that humanity, despite its flaws, can grow beyond its nature. That's more than most species ever achieve." Derek stared at the offered hand, emotions warring inside him. Anger at the deception, relief at survival, confusion about what came next. Finally, he took Kavreth's hand. "What happens now?" Derek asked. "Now, I take you before the Council," Kavreth said, "and I tell them what I witnessed. That humanity deserves a chance. Not freedom, not yet, but dialogue. A path forward that doesn't end in mutual destruction." "They'll listen to you?" "I've fought for this galaxy for 943 years, Kavreth said. "I've earned the right to be heard. Whether they'll agree?" He released Derek's hand. "That remains to be seen." The fear is real, Captain. The scars the architects left run deep. Convincing the galaxy to trust humanity won't happen in a single night. But it's possible. Everything is possible, Kavreth said. That's what your species has taught us. For better or worse, you've reminded the galaxy that evolution isn't finished. That change, real change, is always within reach. Whether that change leads to cooperation or catastrophe will depend on the choices your people make in the coming years. Derek felt the weight settling on his shoulders again, heavier than before. Not just his life, but the future of his entire species hung in the balance of decisions not yet made. I can't promise we'll be perfect, Derek said. I'm not asking for perfect, Kavreth replied. I'm asking for conscious, for deliberate, for choosing the harder path when the easier one leads to darkness. His 3 eyes held Derek's gaze with an intensity that seemed to see through to his soul. Can humanity do that, Captain Stone? Can your species choose wisdom over instinct? Derek thought of Earth, of the wars and peace treaties, of the slow, painful progress towards something better. He thought of the Prometheus crew, who had followed him into the unknown not for conquest, but for discovery. He thought of all the humans who dreamed of stars not to own them, but to understand them. We can try, Derek said. That's all I can promise. We'll try. Kavreth studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then perhaps that's enough. The chamber doors opened and guards entered, their weapons lowered but present. Kavreth gestured, and they formed an escort rather than a capture party. Come, Kavreth said. The council awaits. And Captain, yes, whatever happens in that chamber, know this. You've changed my mind about humanity. In 9 centuries, very few beings have changed my mind about anything. That's worth remembering. As Derek walked toward the doors, flanked by guards and followed by an ancient warrior who had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, he felt something unexpected, not fear or anger or even relief, but hope. Fragile, uncertain hope that the future might hold something other than war. The chamber ahead would decide humanity's fate. The council would vote, would argue, would ultimately choose whether to give Earth's children a chance or to end the threat they represented. Derek couldn't control that, but he could control who he was in this moment and who he chose to be in every moment after. The architects, real or imagined, were dead. Humanity was alive, flawed and dangerous and capable of greatness. The galaxy was watching. And Derek Stone, captain of the destroyed Prometheus, survivor of an impossible test, walked forward to speak for a species that refused to accept any limitation, including the limitation of its own worst nature. Behind him, Kavreth watched with 3 ancient eyes and wondered if hope was enough. Ahead, the council chamber doors opened and Derek Stone stepped into the light, ready to tell the galaxy who humans really were and who they were determined to become.